Good evening. I'll call the public council meeting for April 1st, 2019 to order. May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis.
Here.
Councilwoman Peterson. Here. Councilman Tonello.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Vargo.
Here.
Mayor Sakala.
Here. Will everyone please rise for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting was duly provided to the Verona Cedar Grove Times and the Star Ledger by email and published in an annual schedule of meetings, December 27, 2018, filed with the Township Clerk and posted on the Public Bulletin Board in the Municipal Building lobby in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. We'll get right to item 2 on our agenda, extraordinary business of the Township Council. We have 2 presentations this evening. I'll go over to the podium and take care of those. Good evening again. This evening, we have a proclamation regarding Autism Awareness Month. Each year, this month is designated as Autism Awareness Month, and we like to recognize that. And we have Mrs. Trupia here again. And come on up, Mrs. Trupia. We welcome you, and we thank you for all your hard work that you do to recognize, to keep this in everyone's forefront of everyone's mind. We have a proclamation, as we do every year. I'd like to read that, and then I'll hand the microphone over to you to say a few words, okay? Our proclamation reads, whereas autism is a pervasive developmental disorder affecting the social, communication, and behavioral skills of those affected by it, and whereas as more health professionals become proficient in diagnosing autism, more children are being diagnosed on the autistic spectrum, resulting in rates as high as 1 in 34 in New Jersey. And whereas it is well documented that if individuals with autism receive treatment early in their lives, it is often possible for those individuals to lead significantly improved lives. Whereas individuals with autism often require a lifetime of specialized and community support services to ensure their health and safety, and to support families' resilience as they manage the psychological and financial effects autism presents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Joseph Sakala, do hereby proclaim April 2019 as National Autism Awareness Month in the Township of Cedar Grove, and urge all employees and residents to participate in our municipality's National Autism Awareness Month activities in order to become better educated on the subject of autism spectrum disorder. Again, thank you for all your hard work, and this is for you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you once again to the Town Council. I think this is our 8th or 9th year, so thank you again. And on behalf of the Realize Group, I would also like to just thank Catherine Wolverton, Francine Falcone of the Cedar Grove Public Library, and their staff for once again working with us to organize our community autism awareness event. That is this Wednesday, April 3rd, 7 p.m. at the Cedar Grove Public Library. It's a free event open to the public, adults, and we'll be showing the movie Autism in Love. I'd also like to recognize the Cedar Grove Public School District for incorporating autism awareness education in their curriculum again. And lastly, I'd like to acknowledge the individuals and the families who are impacted by the challenges that autism presents, and recognize the people who live those challenges daily. Thank you. Thank you.
Our next piece of extraordinary business deals with a business that we have in town by the name of Esposito's. And do we have Pete Michke here? Come on up. This past Saturday, Pete and his family celebrated 30 years in business in our township, and there was a celebration there on Saturday morning. We have a proclamation to present to you. We thank you for all the great work that you do in supporting our town. We know how much you all volunteer and provide services and help out whenever there's an event, and everyone throughout the township is thankful for everything that you've done over the last 30 years. So I'd like to read this proclamation to you. Whereas this year marks the 30th anniversary of Esposito's, a family-owned pizzeria and catering business operated by Pete Michike that was originally located at 505 Pompton Avenue, and whereas the business relocated to the current location at 465 Pompton Avenue in 2000, and whereas through the years, Esposito has provided steady and gainful employment to our residents, particularly township youth, thus contributing to the area's economy, and whereas Esposito's has been an important factor in the continued vitality of the downtown business district, and whereas Esposito's has always taken an active part in civic affairs and has consistently supported community projects and organizations, and whereas special activities have been planned to celebrate the occasion of this 30th anniversary, and it is fitting that we should join in the expression of our pride and appreciation for the many civic and economic benefits that our community has enjoyed from Esposito's contributions. Now therefore be it resolved that I do extend my personal congratulations to those of the Township Council, to Esposito's for these 30 years of business and the many contributions and services rendered to our community as they celebrate their 30th anniversary, and further extend best wishes for many more years of continued success in the future. I'd like to thank you for everything that you've done, and we wish you 30 more and beyond years in our township.
Thank you so much. Mayor Sakala and members of the board, we would just like to say it is an honor to be here, and I would like to thank all of you for giving us the opportunity, and also a huge thank you to this wonderful community that we belong to. We are so proud to be Cedar Grovians, and we look forward to the next 30 years.
Wait, don't go away. I just have a few words. Well, as I said at your party on Saturday, we just want to thank you for all the years of service to this community. If you look at every fundraiser that's put on by every organization in this town, on the bottom you'll see the name Esposito's. If you look at food that's at all the parties all over, you'll see Esposito's. And these are donations and out of the thoughtness of their heart that they give. The other thing, we had Hurricane Sandy, we had the Halloween storms. This town had no power, nothing. And all I saw was Peter Michike, and the DPW guys were the only guys on the road. As a matter of fact, he had generators out the back of his store, and that was the only light and the only place for people in this town to go. So his dedication and support of this community is second to none. And him and his wife, I want to thank you personally on behalf of this township for everything that you do, because you are the rock here, and we thank you again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tucci.
Okay. Moving on, item 3, approval of minutes. To consider approval of minutes of the regular public meeting for March 4th, 2019.
Make a motion to approve, Mayor.
Second.
Is there any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 4, public hearing. To consider adoption of pending ordinance number 19-839, amending Chapter 80 of the Township Code entitled Affordable Housing.
An ordinance amending Chapter 80 of the Township Code of the Township of Cedar Grove entitled Affordable Housing to add Article 2 to address the requirements of the Fair Housing Act, the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls, regulations, and the court-ordered settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center regarding compliance with the township's affordable housing obligations.
At this time, I'd like to open up the public hearing for any comments from the audience regarding this ordinance. Seeing none, I'll close that portion of the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move for the adoption of pending ordinance 19839 to be published in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a passed ordinance to take effect as prescribed by law.
Second.
Is there any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 5, award of bid. To consider resolution concerning award of bid for removal of liquid sludge from WWTP.
Be it resolved that the award of bid be made to Spectra Serve of Kearney, New Jersey.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just to clarify what this is for our sewage treatment plant, the end product is sludge. And what happens is that sludge gets trucked to a treatment plant, and this is the trucking contract for the, to take the sludge from our wastewater treatment plant facility to Passaic Valley Sewage in North. That's what this is about.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. The meeting is now open to residents of the township wishing to be heard on any item that appears on the agenda. Seeing none, close that portion of the meeting and move on to item 7, reports of township officials. Mr. Tucci, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. First item I have is probably one of the most important items that we have every year. It's the introduction of our 2019 municipal budget, and you're going to vote on the introduction a little later on, but I just want to give you an overview of what exactly is being proposed for this year. As the governing body is aware, local finance board dictates when we introduce the budget. This year, the date was March 29th, or the closest day thereto, which ends up being today, April 1st. As we normally do, we had budget hearings here in January, which were televised for the public to see. And then that is the appropriation side of the budget. Mr. Homa, who's in the office, in the audience this evening, does the revenue side. And what happens is we merge those two and try to strike a tax rate. For this year, the proposed budget is $15,487,603. That's as compared to $15,259,282 last year, or an increase of $228,328 for this year. Based on the cap calculations, which is on the sheet behind the proposed memo, you'll see the cap calculation, the amount to be raised by taxation, is $10,759,696. The township is only proposing to have an appropriation of $10,477,609, so that means we're $282,087 under the cap. In New Jersey, you have to stay within the 2% cap, and we're beneath that. All total, we tried to save money through group medical this year. There's been some adjustments from the state on our state health benefits plan. We were able to save $434,633 this year. That's a big reduction because of that minor change. Some of the increases that we're going to experience this year, our municipal library went up $59,433. Legal services went up $5,000. Municipal elections, which we hold every 2 years, that budget's going up $23,319. Police and fire pension contributions, $171,212. Town pool debt service, $154,140. Municipal debt service, $409,750. And a major portion of that is the down payment we had to put on the purchase of the North Watershed property. And the LoSEP program went up about $26,000 this year. So as far as 2019 municipal tax rate, the net valuation taxable is $2,219,832,300. So our ratables are down a little bit from $2,227,463,200. Our local rate is projected to be 0.507 as opposed to 0.495 last year. The average assessed house in Cedar Grove is up. It's $482,200, up from $467,100. So the average assessed home, each point on an average assessed home is $44.22. All total, the average taxpayer in Cedar Grove on an average house assessment will pay $2,373.77 on the average assessment. So all total, on the average house, the increase will be $61.62 for this year. That's what the proposal is at this point, and that's what you're going to entertain later on this evening. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I don't have any questions, but we say this all the time. Thank you and Mr. Homa for all the hard work you do, putting your time and effort into not only creating the budget, but keeping it at such a, incredibly low rate. Our tax base here, as we say all the time, is one of the lowest in the county. And, because of your work, Mr. Homa's work, and the other employees here in the town, that make that happen year after year. So thank you.
And I just want to highlight one other fact. Our tax rate will be between 19 and 20 cents on the dollar. That's traditionally very low. If you look at other municipalities, it's considerably more. But again, Mr. Homa does a wonderful job bringing in the revenue. This year we had a pretty good year, so we were able to subsidize the budget pretty good with our revenues. So that's what you're entertaining this evening, and I'll move on to my next item.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
before we move on, so one comment. Mr. Tucci, for the public's information, can you explain to them briefly what percentage the municipal tax is on an overall tax that we pay between the county, the Board of Ed, and a municipality, and the services that you get as a result of that?
So traditionally, we'll just round it up in round numbers. The township's approximately 20% of your tax bill. So if your average tax bill is $10,000, the township's getting $2,000 of that. And with that, you get your police, all your services, DPW, solid waste collection, so on and so forth. The Board of Education is traditionally in the 50% range, between 50 and 55 cents, and the county's in the 30 cent range. So that's the breakup of your tax dollar. So when you get a tax bill, and I'm just using 10,000 as an example, 5,000 will be approximately Board of Education, 3,000 would be the County of Essex, and 2,000 is what comes here. So what you see in your tax bill can't be assumed that that's what the township is operating on. We're only operating on approximately 20% of what you see and you get your services for. And you'll see at my next item I'm going to report on is we just got a letter from the Reservoir Ridge Condo Association saying what a great year of services for snow removal up there. That it was remarkable, and they just couldn't let it go without letting us know what a good job the guys did.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. Thanks, Mayor.
And that's all I have for this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. Township Clerk, Mrs. Stutz, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. I'm happy to report that we received confirmation from the Board of Elections that they approved our recommendations to remove polling sites from the schools and relocate them elsewhere. We are in the process of, the County Board of Elections will be sending letters out to all registered voters noting that change. In addition, we ourselves have posted a notice on our website. We'll post a notice in the library, and there's a notice posted on the TV Scribe to try and make this transition go smoothly. And anybody who has any questions regarding what voting district they're in, that will be reflected on any sample ballot that they receive for any election, and they can always call the Township Clerk's office.
Thank you, Mrs. Stutz. And if I can just say that after the information was posted to the website, I know I forwarded on to residents through social media and word of mouth, and
We've been receiving calls.
the response has been overwhelming. So I thank you for all your hard work in making this happen. I know it took a lot of coordination with Linda Von Nessy and the Board of Elections and everyone down in Newark. It wasn't easy to do. It was a long process, but I really commend you for all your hard work, and thank you. It's going to make a real difference in our town.
Thank you.
So I appreciate
Happy
it.
to do it.
Anything further?
The only other thing I have is a reminder that the Township Arbor Day celebration is April 26th at 4 p.m. at Morgan's Farm.
Thank you. a report of the Township Attorney. Good evening, Mr. Cimarero.
Good evening, Mayor. I think that we could release Mr. Dziniak now. He was here to answer questions on that ordinance if there was any.
Mr. Jaziniak, I appreciate your being here. I thank you for coming to help out in case we had any questions. Thank you, and have a safe trip home.
Thanks for making the trip.
Thanks, Mike.
Good night, everybody.
We had submitted a memo that was in response to some questions regarding guidance on capital improvements for rent control. We had reviewed the ordinances, we had suggested certain changes. We reduced that to a memo and we provided that to the manager. I anticipate that we'll probably be addressing that within the next few council meetings. So we'll have that to be placed on the agenda. If I just may ask, Mr. Tucci, should I cover that thing that we discussed or no? The site visit?
You could address it now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
it
think,
might,
okay.
it might be best to address it now.
Okay, as the council will recall, we were addressed by a number of residents regarding flooding conditions. Those residents were in the Willow Ridge Estates, West Lindsley Road, and Mountain Avenue localities. Their complaints were focused on one of three areas. The first had to deal with the flooding of the August 2018 storm, that superstorm, and the mudslide essentially that came down the mountain. There were also complaints regarding the aqueducts, retaining walls, and then some general complaints about the road conditions in Willow Ridge and on some driveways. We obviously took those concerns seriously. I had met with the town manager and the town engineer. We reviewed historical documents which included but aren't limited to tax maps, topographical maps, stormwater reports, stormwater location maps. We even reviewed the developer agreement for Willow Ridge, reviewed past communications between residents, the township representatives, county representatives, as well as the DEP and the Hudson, Essex, and Passaic Soil Conservation District. We then actually performed a site inspection because I really wasn't familiar with the area, and we ended up looking at all of the issues that would relate to these complaints. We looked at the topography. I note that, and I know the council's certainly familiar, but I guess just to emphasize the fact that we familiarized, or everyone familiarized me with the situation, we know that the two roads actually meet at a point. The property in all the affected areas slopes downward in a northerly direction, with North Caldwell being on the top. I took note of the streams that came down the mountain, all on private property, traveled by way of culverts underneath the two county roads, only to proceed on private property again, all the way through down to property on the Willow Ridge side of West Lindsley. I investigated it. It is all private property, with the exception of the culverts, which were only to direct water flow underneath the county roads. The township doesn't own, control, or maintain any property in the area. It doesn't have any stormwater management system that is impacted or incorporating these streams into its system. We also looked at what happened with respect to the storm back in 2018. At that point in time, as certainly the council knows, the township did respond immediately. They had sent the township engineer out to the area to see what the problem was. It was identified as the storm of the century. Actually, probably, I think it was beyond a 100-year storm. We even looked at some historical records, and there was a unique flooding patterns throughout the entire state. It turns out that this was sheet water. Our engineer actually formalized a report. He made observations of what happened down this mountainside. The water clearly was coming from the south and higher elevations, and he confirmed that there was no property or a stormwater management system of the township that was in any way involved. This was just sheet water being directed through natural topography into the streams in question, and they just got overrun. The township manager immediately reached out to the county executive, who, as we know, sent out staff and cleaned up the area immediately. And through the documents we saw, it was clear that the county did offer to try to repair one of the culverts that was impacted. The county did offer to do some repairs on one resident's house, or property, I should say, due to some erosion damage. That particular resident wanted that work to be, I guess, approved and involving the DEP as well as the Soil Conservation District. At that point in time, the county kind of stopped talking. They were willing to do it up to an extent. Once it kind of got complicated, it looks like they backed away from that particular offer. We also took a look at, and I had spoken to the township engineer regarding the aqueduct and the retaining walls that are adjacent to the aqueduct. The engineer confirmed that this is not a high pressurized aqueduct. He confirmed that the retaining walls are not there for any structural support or anything for the aqueduct itself, but just simply to hold back the soil that is covering the aqueduct. We did look at the retaining walls. There certainly does not appear to be anything structural. Those are retaining walls that are on private property owners' property as well. But while there may be some cosmetic cracks here and there, there certainly wasn't anything there to be concerned of. We did drive through the development, the Willow Ridge development. The roadways have some cracks, but there's certainly nothing there that is functionally impairing the roadway or raising a safety issue in any regard. As the council is well aware, the township prioritizes its road resurfacing, and it repairs those roads that are in the worst condition first. And these roads certainly aren't the worst. They're certainly not perfect, but they're not the worst, and they're functioning just fine. With regard to driveways, this development is over 20 years old, and these driveways are, and these houses are going through remodeling. Many of the driveways are redone already with paver brick. Some are redone with macadam. And it's clear which houses didn't redo their driveways, and those driveways, for the most part, are in a similar state of disrepair. There's some aging, there's some crackling, some alligatoring, if that's a technical word, with regard to the pavement. But there certainly doesn't seem to be anything that is being caused that the township could do anything about. Obviously, hilly properties will have more instances of water running across or underneath the macadam and maybe aging it a little prematurely, but there doesn't seem to be anything there that is of the nature that the township could potentially address. So due to the fact that none of the property that is housing, for lack of a better word, the stormwater runoff from the mountain, there's really nothing that the township could do itself. It doesn't have a stormwater management system it could improve. It doesn't have any avenue available to it to take action against third parties because it's a property owner that's being adversely affected potentially by the acts of third parties. What we did do, as requested, was drafted a letter that went out to the county executive. The township manager had sent that out. We did bring up the fact that this was a very bad storm, which we all know, and that maybe they ought to look at and see whether or not any uphill development that occurred had accommodated the stormwater runoff. But the township really doesn't have standing to take any action, and I think that the county certainly knows that. If individuals have properties that are affected by water damage, by flooding conditions, that are technically caused by the acts of or omissions of third parties, they're free to take legal action. And I certainly understand why they came here and articulated their concern. Clearly, the township took that seriously, and we've done what we could do. We researched the heck out of it to see whether or not we could come up with any theory that we could get involved, and quite frankly, we don't. And I know that that's difficult for residents to digest at times, but I guess the one thing that I would suggest is, that's a private individual's claim. And if the township got involved in the business of pursuing claims on the behalf of its individual residents, where would that ever stop? It could even lead to disputes between neighbors and co-residents of the township. So it's really not practical for the township to get involved. But we did certainly do what we could do with regard to the county. And if any of the affected individuals go so far as to retain counsel, and they would ask for the benefit of the knowledge that we have and the information, we certainly could share that with them in order to help them potentially find a remedy out there. Obviously not with us appearing in court, but just sharing information with them. So far as the aqueduct, there's nothing we could do with regard to that, nor does there really truly appear to be anything for us to do. Everything appears to be intact. And our engineer certainly doesn't think anything's in any sort of threat. And with regard to the roadways and driveways inside the Willow Ridge development, I think that I kind of told you what we did there as well.
Mr. Cimarero, you mentioned the letter that was requested. That letter, I know I signed that letter 2 weeks ago,
Right.
and we sent it out.
I
Is there-
apologize, I think I may have said the manager signed it, but yes,
Yeah,
he did.
but that's not the point I was making. The point I wanted to make was, do we know if there's been any response from that letter from the county? And if there is there something that they're that thinking about doing in order to help out the residents over in that area?
I have not heard of a response. Perhaps Mr. Tucci has.
Well, you have the county representative here. You could reach out.
Okay, we'll do that one. Yeah, that's great, Mrs. Harvick. Ms. Harvick, come on up. You're familiar with the
Yes, I am.
situation?
Good evening, Kate Hartway, County Representative. Yes, we were on a conference call actually this morning regarding this issue. Much along the same lines as Mr. Cimarero has said, the county does not own any property in that area beyond the culvert. And as you know, immediately following the storm, the county did respond by clearing that area, coming out to inspect the roadway and make sure that it was safe for travel. And certainly we're open to working with the county and the municipalities on coming up with some kind of resolution if there is a resolution that can be made.
Has the county engineer taken a look at the area? I know they were there at the time of the storm, but
Yep. The engineer has been out in that area, but as Mr. Tucci and Mr. Cimarero have summarized, there's no county property beyond the culvert that we own. So it is, as they mentioned, a century storm. There were lots of flooding issues throughout the county, many of them concentrated in this area.
did you have a question, Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, if I can, so I'm going to address this holistically, I think. I think the site visit that we did is a good first step. It helps us do the due diligence for us as the township to get educated on what we believe the issues are. But I think the critical piece missing from our site visit was actually speaking to the residents and understanding what the issues are. We heard from them, and we're focusing solely on the one century storm. But that's not the case. It's not just one storm that we're hearing from. There was one storm that sticks out in everybody's mind because we were all impacted by that in some way, shape, or form, and we all saw that on Pompton Ave. But what I heard from residents the last time and what I've been in contact with the residents are not just one storm. I don't think they would be here if it were one storm. Am I right there? And this to me hits home because this is an individual's quality of life. This is their home, right? They're there every day and they see potential water issues. And look, I'm just one person up here, but to say that we're not going to get involved, I recognize that we're not going to get involved, but we were elected to be their voice. And we were elected to stand up here and to listen to them over there and to liaise with the county and to push. And the first step in doing that was the letter to the county. So, you know, I don't think you meant this how it comes off. This is not the end. This is not the conclusion, because this is the first I'm hearing of it, and it almost sounds like this is the conclusion, and we're sorry, move on. But that's not the case. This is the due diligence process, because truly the only way to go down and understand what the issues are, to meet with the residents and to understand what the issues are, and to work together to find that solution. Because if it's my house over there, I want all the help that I can get from the folks that were elected to be up here. And I appreciate the first site visit. I think that shows that we're pushing, that the issue's at the forefront of our minds. But I mean, as I've said to the residents that are here, it is at the forefront of my mind. Although I don't see it every day like you do, it is at the forefront of my mind. I've been in constant contact with some of the residents. I've seen some of the issues, and this is not just one storm. And whether it's the culvert or the county engineer, I mean, I think what we had promised and what we had tried to do was to say, have the county engineer come down with the town engineer, meet with the residents, and understand what the issues are. So, this is news to me, what I'm hearing, and I'm getting caught up to speed on this part of the process, but I want to be clear that this is not the end. This can't be the end, because we have to continue to be the voice for our residents. We have to make sure that we work with the county to identify what the problem is, whether it is the culvert, because I know that the residents over there trying to speak with the county, they're not going to get far. They might, but they're going to get further with our assistance. And I think we owe that to them. So, you know, the letter's a good first start. We missed the critical piece of listening to the residents and seeing what the issues are. It is not, from what I heard the last meeting and what I've heard the past couple times, where it is not, this was not a one-storm issue. The one storm impacted a lot of us, but this is not a one-storm issue. This is not the conclusion. This is just, I think, just the beginning of our due diligence. So, I know you're providing the summary of what you did, but I want to just be clear that this is not the conclusion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. No, you'll have your opportunity at the end of the meeting, okay?
Mr. Mayor, may I? make a
Sure.
comment?
Sure.
I agree with what Robbie's saying, but also these large-scale developments, the one over that area over there, could possibly be affecting that problem. I think that also that in our town, when we do these large-scale developments, we need to be a little more observant to what possibly could happen with the additional problems with flooding. So hopefully they'll be able to resolve this, and we can see if that is the possibility of that situation. I think that's it.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, maybe I could just provide a little bit more information.
Yeah, it's your report. We're the one who hijacking it from you, Mr. Semeraro, so please.
No worries. So we looked at the tax maps, we looked at the topographical maps, we looked at the maps that delineate storm source systems in that area. And what we're dealing with is we're dealing with a mountain that's owned by private parties. Those individuals bought property that have streams running through them. Those streams come up to Mountain Road, and the county installed culverts under Mountain Road to allow for the water to continue to run over the roadway under the roadway instead of over the roadway. Immediately on the other side are more private property that's owned by individuals that are residents of the township. And streams run across their properties up until you get to West Lindsley Avenue, where it's another county road and another set of culverts to allow the free flow of water underneath the roadway until it reaches the next set of properties that have streams running across them. Those streams are all long-standing streams. They're not new streams. And by no means am I shrugging anything off, and I'm here to serve, the administration and the council. But when you buy a piece of property that has a stream on it, there are certain things that go with the stream. One of them is flooding, and that's bad. It's never a good situation. No one ever likes it. Everyone likes a stream when it's running the right way. They don't like it when it's running the wrong way, and I get that. But not every problem has a situation that the township could come in and fix. And if this was a situation where the township of Cedar Grove owned property where the streams were cutting across it, and maybe it could do something to help the flow of water, it'd be a different situation. If the culverts were owned by the township of Cedar Grove, or if part of this water could even somehow be diverted to a Cedar Grove storm sewer, maybe there's something Cedar Grove could do. But in this particular case, being familiar with the area, I understand that we have two major county arteries that meet at a focal point to the east, and then they separate. And the problem is all to the west of that focal point, all between these two county roads. Is there something that we could facilitate and participate and be a spokesperson for some of the residents? Yeah, I think that we started that, and we certainly could pursue things further. But I just want to be very clear with regard to the fact that we really don't have other options available to us. I don't really see from a legal standpoint as to anything the township could do, as I think it lacks standing to do so. You end up having a situation where maybe there's a problem that was up mountain into another town. Maybe something was done there that exacerbated the situation. We don't know. And sometimes these storms just happen. From the records that we had, at least the problems that were articulated at the last council meeting, we took some really good notes. We compared the notes to the minutes. And like I said, it wasn't just the storm that was a focus. It was the comments regarding the aqueduct that was the focus, as well as the condition of driveways and roadways in Willow. So we did look at three. If we missed something, it's certainly possible. I certainly didn't intend to, and we could see whether or not there was something else that we missed.
Thank you, Mr. Cimarero. Is there anything further?
No. With respect to the marijuana, you saw the memo on that. The state didn't settle on a recreational statute yet. The statute that was proposed pretty much had a caveat on it, not to pass an ordinance before you see the statute. You're going to have plenty of time to pass your local ordinance. So I think that that's something that would make sense paying attention to, because we could be drafting something that is completely incongruent with ultimately whatever it is that gets passed. Maybe it isn't going to get passed at all, at least in the predictable future. I don't know. So unless I'm directed to the contrary, it was my suggestion that, look, we have the semblance of an ordinance. We could fine tune it once the statute comes in and we're ready to drop as soon as that's done. And that would make sense for us, according to my best advice.
Thank you, Mr. Cimarero.
Thank you.
Reports of the Township Council. Councilman Congoras?
Yes, I have two things. It kind of involves water a little bit, similar to the other situation. The Environmental Commission has received information from the owners of 117 and 135 Pompton Avenue. They're seeking a letter of interest from the Cedar Grove to acquire the property as land donation. Nothing is definite, but this could potentially protect this land for a development. If the council approves, I could forward more information to Mr. Tucci to provide a letter of interest to the property owners. That property in particular is the corner of Ridge Road and Pompton. That was something that I wanted to preserve as open space because it has a large amount of wetlands in there, and the amount of water that recently has gone in there from that freak flood that we had flooded the area and the residents in that small area over there. I think it's important that we preserve that property because one day that could be potentially developed and then we'd have to deal with the water then coming off the mountain there. If they're willing to donate the property, I see no reason why we shouldn't consider that. That's on the first thing. On the second thing, a resident on Pine Street asked me to take a look at something. In their street, they have this muddy water, it looked like to me, but the resident said that it was an iron ore slurry that comes from the neighbor's property next door. I think the council entertained this prior to me becoming on the council. And Alex Blumbo, the engineer, suggested possibly putting the storm sewer in front of this pipe so that the water would go into the slurry. It goes in front of the resident's house, and she said that, you know, nothing has ever been done about it, and I'm only saying what was from the resident. If this slurry, iron ore, that goes in front of a house, if there's something that we could do about it, I think it would be beneficial to us, too.
We could take a look at it, but I believe that was subject of a lawsuit that was before municipal court also, so I'll follow through
Right.
on it.
It's kind of unsightly, the stuff that's there, and I don't think it poses a health risk, but it's a constant running of this muddy slurry.
We could take a look.
All right, that's it, thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Mayor,
you, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, question. Councilman Converse, I just have a question on the first point that you raised about the property on the corner of Ridge and Pompton. You know, anytime we throw out these notions that something could be developed and we have to do this, we have to do that, you know, the last time that this property was discussed, as you point out, it was wetlands, right? It still is. And I think, as we know, you can't really build on wetlands unless you get DEP approval. So my question is we start throwing out the notion of this could be developed. Do we have any notion that it's, you know, any interest in anybody developing it? Do you have any information that it could be feasibly developed? You know, I just kind of want to understand that before we start throwing out these terms.
Okay. Mr. Semerara, in a previous conversation, that property was discussed. Am I permitted to discuss that?
I don't understand the
In
nature of
an
the question.
executive session, we discussed our COA obligation, and that property came up in there. Am I permitted to talk about that?
Well, I think that you could discuss, I don't think that anything that the deputy mayor asked you would be violative of the executive session, so rather than qualifying it about what may have been discussed, and if you could just answer that based upon knowledge you have, I think you're fine.
Okay. In one of our COA executive sessions,
I
that property-
just said don't qualify it. That's that, right? That's the one thing you shouldn't do. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to know, it's real simple. You know, you say it could be potentially developed. I just want to know if you have any information of a developer looking at it, or if you've done a study, or if you know of a study that it is going to be developed or it can be developed
Okay.
with the wetlands.
In a meeting that you were attending, that information did come up in that meeting, and they did
Let's not,
say,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to nitpick. Let's just not discuss the meeting.
That's the
Let's
point
just,
I'm saying.
well, just, if you have knowledge, do you have knowledge of someone that's interested
Yes.
in developing it? Okay.
not the individual, but I know it can be developed.
Okay, well, I think the deputy mayor was asking you, do we know if it's under imminent threat of development, essentially, correct?
Yes.
I would think it would be considered eminent threat if, when we do the 2025 COA stuff, I think that property would probably come up again in that conversation.
So you don't know of anything now?
I don't know any individual.
Okay, that's all I want to know. So, you know, we throw out these terms, we have to be careful.
Yes.
So you don't know of anything now, there's no current threat to it, it's currently wetlands,
Mhm.
right? So that's all, I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page, to make sure I wasn't missing something.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor. Councilwoman Peterson, good evening.
Good evening, no report, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Tanilla?
Thank you, Mayor. Just two items, through you, Mayor. Mr. Tucci, at our last meeting, we talked about doing or looking into a significant upgrade of the West Exit Trails, the 3-mile trail that goes through Cedar Grove. What's the status of that project?
Right now, we have RFPs out for consulting engineers. Hopefully, within the next 30 days, we're going to have everything back from them. We'll have pricing on what it's going to cost to prepare a plan on those trails. And like I said, it would start probably at Mills Reservation, continue through the new property that we acquired, in the process of acquiring from the city of Newark, link up to our current community park, and then come through, hit the West Essex Trail, and link up all the way into Verona. So that's basically where the path would take us. It links up current parts of remnants of an old trail and creating new trails. But again, we're gonna formalize that with a plan.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sorry, just,
Right.
who's maintaining the trail right now? Does the county maintain it?
The
or
only
does
pieces,
anybody?
the township maintains the pieces that go through Community Park. The county maintains theirs, which is labeled the West Essex Bikeway,
Okay.
and then Mills Reservation is the county's also.
There's a tree down,
Mhm.
across I was on the trail today, so would I tell?
Mrs.
Okay,
Mrs.
that's what I
Hartwick-
figured,
Mrs.
I just
Hartwick
wanted to make
will be
sure,
able to
I'll
help
do
you.
that when, okay, sorry, Councilman.
No, that's fine.
Can I just ask one
Yeah,
question?
sure.
Mr. Tucci, so if there's people out on that property looking at it right now, there are, I should say if there are, and residents have asked me if we have consultants, because they're out there saying, ran into a resident or two and saying we're consultants. So they're probably just looking at the
They're
job. and-
analyzing it to put together a proposal to submit to us on what it would cost to prepare a plan.
So it's possible that they are who
Exactly,
they
they're
say that they
scoping
are.
out the work that they're gonna submit a proposal for.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci, sorry,
No, that's
Councilman.
fine, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tucci. And then one other item. Mr. Tucci, what's the status on the tennis courts, the upgrade to our tennis courts?
Matter of fact, I spoke to the recreation director this morning. They're just waiting for the paperwork to come in from the National Co-op. Once that happens, it's gonna be scheduled and done.
So hopefully sometime within the next couple of weeks? you're
Within the
thinking?
next couple of weeks, we're hoping.
Great,
As
okay.
long as we fit into their schedule, which the rain held back a little bit, but it should fit in. We should get it done rather quickly.
Great.
We're looking to get it done sooner than later.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Tucci.
Thank you, Councilman. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple points. So one of the topics that I had was Pilgrim, but I'll let the residents speak to that. Some positive news that we have coming up in Cedar Grove on May 18th, we have our Cedar de Mayo Festival. It's rain or shine. We will have food trucks and other vendors there serving food. There'll be a DJ, a mariachi band, and Unico is providing a beer and wine tent. So it should be a really, really good event. A lot of people are excited about it. Again, it's rain or shine, so unlike last year where it got rained out twice and we never had it, this year the show will go on whether we have rain or not. It'll just be moved inside. So I have to thank Unico for all of their support, because the Downtown Advisory Committee, we work together with Unico, and Amy Tafuro, who is the president of Unico right now, is fantastic in putting things together. So I have to thank her and the entire Unico board for everything that they do for us. Adding on to that, another positive thing we have coming up in the downtown area is the Art Walk, and that's on June 13th. So if you remember last year, we had some banners hanging from our light posts that were painted by local artists. We'll have that again. We'll have an opening. Last year, we received a lot of questions whether there was going to be craft vendors at the Art Walk. This year, we will have some craft vendors there, so we encourage you to come early, shop. If you are a vendor, reach out to us, because every year we're going to look to make this event better and better. And thank you to the Downtown Advisory Committee for putting it all together. I see all the hard work that they put in. The work that they put in just doesn't happen at the meetings. It goes above and beyond that, and they're working around the clock to try to make all of these events happen. Then just an update for the council on the Bill Fearon Memorial. So we, as you all know, we had some money budgeted in our budget this year to work on the Fearon Memorial. If you go down to Panther Park, there's a large boulder that's there. Mr. Tucci we worked with the family to get a big plaque put together that will be on the face of that boulder. But we're also working.
Which is in the lobby.
Which is in the lobby still, right? And it's massive, right? And the update for the council is we're going to be working with Janice and Mr. Tucci to figure out what else we can do around the boulder. We had Columbia Bank, as you know, has donated some money to help beautify that area over there, and we have some money in the budget. So working with Janice and Mr. Tucci, we're hoping to have something set up by September. So We were looking at June or September, but Janice currently prefers September right now. So I'll keep you posted on that, and, hopefully we'll have something great over there. At the Art Walk. Mr. Tucci, the question for you on the crosswalk over by Panther Park, since we're in that general area, are we still waiting on our consultant? Where does
Our
that stand?
consultant has submitted the plans to the county. We're waiting for their final review to get back to us if there's any modifications
Okay,
at that point.
and then, so the process-wise.
And then what'll happen is.
Thank you.
The county will probably send over a maintenance agreement, because while they allow you to put it on their road, the township will assume the maintenance on it. Similar to the mid-block crosswalk we have with, in the center of town with DOT. Similar, we have an agreement with them that we maintain that. I'm sure the county's gonna want that, so that'll come into play, and once that happens and they sign off on it, then it'll be a go.
Then it'll be go.
But as far as our consultants finalized
We're
our
done.
plans, we're done. We're just waiting for comments back at this point.
Fantastic. Mr. Tucci, thank you for pushing that, and I appreciate that. It's been, a long process, but at least we're getting closer. So thank you very much. The last question I have is, do we have an update on the Newark watershed property, where that stands?
The Newark Watershed property is finalized. We're just waiting for the boundary survey from our surveyor, Boswell Engineering, and that's the last piece. We already submitted our environmental report to the City of Newark. They accepted it, and our attorney told us that's the last piece that needs to be done before the closing. I expect that to be within weeks.
Fantastic.
The closing?
Closing, yes.
Good.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Tucci. Mr. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Tucci, for my report, just have one quick question. This comes up, I know I've asked this question before, and I think I know what the answer is, so I'm not asking it again, but every now and then I get an email or a phone call from a resident asking about crosswalks over by St. Catherine's, and I know why we can't do it, and we've been through that. But a question came to me just the other day by a resident about, there's that time period between 10 o'clock and 10:15 where church is letting out and CCD is starting up, and they were asking about a crossing guard or a police officer over there to direct traffic. Is that something that they should be asking St. Catherine's, because they would be
Exactly.
responsible for hiring someone to do that?
That's the normal process.
Okay.
That-
Okay, I just want to make sure I give the resident accurate information when I get back.
Because we have other religious institutions in town, and they pay for the police officer to be present during their ceremonies.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tucci. I have nothing further for this evening, so we'll close that portion of the meeting and move on to new business. Under, it's item 8A, to consider introduction of pending ordinance number 19-840 to exceed the municipal budget appropriations limit and to establish a cap bank.
We read the same thing, so.
You want me to read it?
Ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank.
Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move introduction of pending ordinance 19-840 to be published in summary in the Verona Cedar Grove Times as a pending ordinance with a public hearing scheduled for April 15, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make clear, this does not increase anybody's taxes so that we can put money in the bank. What it is a paper transaction that allows us, you see how in the cap calculation, I stated there were $282,000 under the cap. What it allows us to do, it allows us to put it in a cap bank, so that in years following, if we do have to exceed, you can utilize that cap. They allow you a 3-year period to use the cap bank, and it's only in an emergency. Like with us, I don't think we've ever used the cap bank, maybe 1 year since I've been here. So what happens, it just gives us that flexibility in the event we run into a problem, which I don't anticipate. But the point I want to make is, this does not increase anybody's taxes, that we're increasing taxes to put it in the bank. Because that's what the connotation is when you read it. But that's not the case.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Quindouris?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8B, to consider introduction of the 2019 municipal budget.
Be it resolved that the statements of revenues and appropriations herein shall constitute the municipal budget for the year 2019, and be it further resolved that said budget be published in the Verona Cedar Grove Times in the issue of April 25th, 2019.
Is there a motion?
So move, Mayor.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just want to highlight, our tax rate went up 1 cent this year. So it went
Great
from
job.
49 cents to 50 cents.
Can you round it up?
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8C, to consider introduction of the 2019 solid waste collection district budget.
Be it resolved that the following statements of revenues and appropriations shall constitute the solid waste collection district budget for the year 2019.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8D, to consider resolution concerning self-exam of municipal budget.
Be it resolved that the governing body, in accordance with NJAC 5:30-7.6A and 7.6B, and based upon the Chief Financial Officer's certification, has been found, the governing body has found that the budget has met the requirements to participate in self-exam.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
May I have,
I will give you
any
an
discussion?
explanation on what this is. Every year, every municipality introduces their budget, and the requirement is that you have to send it down to the state of New Jersey, who examines it, signs it off, and sends it back to you to adopt at some point. The problem is, the state of New Jersey staff to examine 565 municipalities is very low. So it would take them a real long time to do it. So a couple of years back, they came up with the self-examination. And what it allows, not every year, but every other year, a municipality is allowed to do a self-examination. Your certified tax assessor or certified finance officer certifies and sends it down to the state. They sign off on that certification, and then what happens is the following year, your budget has to go down. So every other year, they allow you to do what they call self-examination, where your CFO is certifying that everything's in order, and this way, municipal budgets get adopted in a timely fashion. But that's what self-examination is.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8E, to consider resolution concerning deferral of school tax levy.
Be it resolved that the deferred school tax levy for the local school district be increased from the sum of $14,147,194, which was deferred as of December 31st, 2017, to the sum of $14,535,741.
Yeah, may I have a motion?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
Any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8F, to consider resolution concerning tax reduction granted by the Tax Court of New Jersey.
Be it resolved that the required tax cancellations and refunds be made.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Tinella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8G, to consider resolution concerning purchase of above-ground fuel tanks, installation, removal, repair, and related equipment through state contract number A42270.
Be it resolved that the above-ground fuel tanks installation, removal, repair, and related equipment be awarded to E.O. Habehager through state contract A42661 and Independence Constructors through state contract number A42270.
Is there a motion?
So moved, Mayor?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, this is the last underground storage tank that the township has responsibility for. As you all know, underground storage tanks are a huge liability, especially when they start to leak. The cleanups are very expensive. We used to have them here at Town Hall when we had to fill up here. We used to have them down at DPW. Everything has been removed, cleaned up. We have above-ground tanks. Only tank we have left is one of our pump stations, which ironically is on Francisco Avenue in Little Falls, has an underground tank, and we want to eliminate that before it becomes a problem. We sent a copy of the plans over to the Township of Little Falls Administrator, who gave us the okay. So what this is we're going to remove that underground tank and put an above-ground tank, screen it off so that our neighbors in Little Falls don't have to see it, and that will be our last major liability piece that we have here. Also, we're going to save a couple of dollars because every year the state of New Jersey, when you have an underground storage tank, you have to register it, you have to have it inspected. It costs us a lot of money. And this eliminates a lot of that procedure that we have to go through and fees that we have to pay.
Thank you, Mr. Tucci. May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Canella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8H, to consider resolution concerning approval of raffle application for the Cedar Grove Elks.
Be it resolved that said application is hereby approved.
Make a motion to approve, Mayor.
Second.
Any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Canella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 8I, to consider resolution concerning developers agreement for the St. Mark's Coptic Church.
Be it resolved that the appropriate municipal officials are hereby authorized to sign a developer's agreement.
Is there a motion?
So moved, Mayor?
Second.
Any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Canella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. Item 9, approval of bills.
Be it resolved that the summary of bills having been duly audited and found correct are hereby ordered paid in the amount of $184,599.17.
May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, Mayor.
Any discussion? May I have roll call, please?
Councilman Camburis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson?
Yes.
Councilman Canella?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vargo?
Yes.
Mayor Sakala?
Yes. The meeting is now open to residents of the township wishing to be heard on any item on or off the agenda concerning township business. Ms. Hartwick, welcome again.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just to advise you, the Essex County Department of Public Works has identified Bradford Road for repaving this season. That will be repaved from Grove to Woodstone. Date's not yet determined, but sometime over this paving season, that road will be taken care of in Cedar Grove. Also, April is our cherry blossom season in Branchbrook Park in Newark. This upcoming weekend, we have a bike race and a 10K run on Sunday. While there is no longer accepting online registrations, runners who want to come out and run can come that morning. Registration opens at 8 a.m. and we do take same-day registrations. And then the following weekend on the 13th and 14th, we'll have family events and festivals in Branchbrook Park as well. All of the details are on the county's website, essexcountynj.org. And then as well, at the end of the month, we will have an Earth Day ceremony, an event at the Environmental Center in Roseland, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And again, there's more details on this county's website.
Thank you.
And
Councilwoman,
Mayor,
did you have a
for
question?
you, so there's a tree down across the trail, if, you can tell the county, if you go up Lewis Road, right?
Lewis, yeah.
So go up, all the way up Lewis and jump on the trail there, make a left, about 100 feet to the left, the tree is down.
You don't know the approximate size, do you?
It's a big.
It's a really big one?
It's a huge tree. It was completely covering the trail, and then I went on it again today, and it looks like someone cut a little piece of it just so you could get through. It's a big tree.
That's basically
Yeah.
behind the police academy to the east.
Yeah, they probably will not remove the whole set piece, but they will trim it farther so that more of the
Yeah,
path
just so
is-
you
yeah.
could get, it's covering the entire
Sure.
path, so, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Hartwick. Any other residents wishing to be heard? State your name and address, please.
Mr. Mayor, Richard Vazano, 14 Pilgrim Court. First, I'd like to say thank you to the Deputy Mayor for coming out on his own time, okay? Taken away from his family to come see us residents at 14 Pilgrim Court and Willow and so forth, that he did examine the properties and stuff like that. It was mentioned tonight that a lot of this was due to our one big major storm. On March 22nd, at 7:11 in the morning, which is a school time, being picked up with the buses. Here are some pictures that our kids are standing next to that's coming off the mountain, okay, if you'd like to see it, what it looks like. I have it in my phone with the time and the date. Okay, this is just what they're standing next to. Never mind any boulders or any rocks that are coming down along with the water and falling into the street. Basically, what I heard tonight was they did everything in their possible powers in getting this started, and they didn't see anything with the engineering and stuff like that. My question is the report just on our street alone, on 14 and Willow, okay? It hasn't been paved in 22 years, okay? That's number one. Now, this street hasn't been paved for 22 years, and it's the existing pavement that when the development came in, the existing pavement is always supposed to get a fresh coat after the builder is out of there, when the whole development is finished, okay? Never happened. We have sewer drains that are sitting this much higher in the road, which we have pictures for, okay? So how is that water supposed to flow down into these sewer drains and go into these retention basins that they're saying that they've seen everything? My wife has been plenty of times out there taking little water manhole covers and stuff like that, replacing them back on the asphalt pavement, because I have children that drive cars that have low-profile tires, okay? My wife drives a big truck, so nothing happens to that. I have tires right now that's been blown out on my street with bills and receipts because of these issues, with pictures and everything. So I would like to know the report on just the street alone, why it hasn't been paved. I brought it up at the last meeting. No one has known anything about, for 22 years, that this road wasn't paved. Now, here's pictures that I just provided right there alone, just where our children are standing with the buses, okay, to be picked up in the morning. Now I have other pictures that I could show you that Essex County says that all their, I guess, whatever repairs that they did to the hill because of this one major storm, everything is okay. Yes, I do have a stream that runs down our property that has been eroding for over 20-something years, okay? I have pictures and dates that it's not even raining and the water is just gushing down, eroding into my property, taking trees that are just leaning, that you see all the roots and everything. Now, this is a county problem, supposedly, correct? Not a resident's problem, because the residents really don't own that stream. That is provided by the county. The county is actually taken off the hill, and they just fixed that portion that runs into my stream. They just put up some walls, okay? That stream comes down, goes between my property and another neighbor's property. Now, that same thing, it's not even raining out, and that stream is just continuously flowing. All that they're doing is taking it from the hill, routing it underneath their county road onto our property, okay, and keeps going down the stream, which all our sewer drains go into that same brook and go off into a pit. It's never been cleaned, that pit. Town, county, no one has ever maintained it, no one's ever cleaned it. But our water on our street has to be 2 to 3 inches before it even goes into that sewer drain. So how is the analysis on our street alone? Let's just talk about that. Forget about, because that is a town issue right there. How is that okay that we have to live in 2 to 3 inches of water on our street, and our kids to walk into that? Now, that same brook that we're talking about, that county owns, that goes underneath Lindsley and into this brook down between my property and another neighbor's, okay? How is that not eroding my property, my driveway, that people want to say, oh, it's an original driveway? That is actually gurgling up, which I have pictures if you like to see, gurgling up my driveway, ripping my driveway apart, cracking my driveway into the sidewalk, And then also going into electrical box that PSE&G owns that supplies me and another neighbor. So how is that an analysis that engineers and everybody came out? I also just hired Mrs. Omlin, who's an engineer, for my property alone, that I'm gonna have her design a whole new backyard, which I just got done spending about $10,000 last year in putting in new landscaping and doing all new sod and everything, which got wiped away and is completely gone. Now I'm just hiring her, which is gonna be another $2,000-3,000, which I'm gonna have a whole engineer design this whole plan, bring it in front of the town to get approval to do all new retaining walls, okay, to try to cure my problem. But once again, my problem still lies with that brook that is coming down between the two properties, which I can't touch. I can't do anything with. Because if you tell me that I'm allowed to, well, then at that point, why don't I just take dirt, cover it all, put it underneath the ground, like everybody else is doing? And all that's gonna do is just block that up, so the water underneath Lindsley, then it's gonna keep going from the hill, and it's gonna find another route to go. And it's gonna take that other route, and it's gonna either wipe out a neighbor's home, or wipe out someone else's house on the hill. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I'm not a person that's vicious. I'm not a person that's gonna do something like that. So where do I lie, even after my engineer gets involved? So with the road, what I'm asking is, what was the analysis of the road since this engineer came out? And he said that there's other roads in Cedar Grove that needed more attention than ours. Now, if you just said in this meeting tonight that there is a water issue and a water problem, why should our sewer drains be 2 to 3 inches above the pavement? That we have to live in a flood zone this high. And you also stated tonight that we have brooks. When you buy a piece of property, you know that you could have flooding. You know that you could have water problems. Well, if that's the case, then why wasn't that property in a flood zone? Why wasn't it designated as flood, where you need flood insurance? Why wasn't that ever brought to anybody's attention? Because what I feel is if that is a flooding part of anything with water, you should have to require and get flood zone, which I don't want flood zone because, as everybody knows, that makes your property value go down even more. And it's harder to sell your property. So I'm asking first with the street alone. Where is the full analysis just with the street alone to fix our problem there between the man and the sewer problems? Can anybody answer that question?
Mr. Tucci, do you know if Mr. Palumbo looked at the grading on the street with the sewer drains and?
Pretty sure that he went out and took a look at it. Also, I have a copy of the roadway inventory here I'm looking at right now. It says the road was constructed in 2001 was the date. And the last time they reviewed it was at the end of last year in 2018.
So we have a road inventory that wasn't created for our purposes with you and your neighbors. We have a road inventory that gets reviewed every two years.
Every 2 years.
And that's what Mr. Tucci is referring to right now. So he's looking at the road inventory for your street.
But the issue as far as the raised basin, I'll take a look at that myself tomorrow.
If you don't
I
mind.
will, absolutely.
And someone will get back to you on that,
Can
okay?
someone answer the question, the last time, what's the latest that a road has ever went before it's been repaved? 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? How many before? What determines a road to be paved?
We have a road inventory. We have a crew of people that go out every 2 years and inventory all the roads in town. And they put together an inventory, and what that is a list of streets that are in need of paving. And we do paving as much as we can, and we base our decision to pave on the road inventory that's created.
So should we live with patches on our street?
Well,
When the water company comes in because there's water issues and problems, that there's a pipe that's broken and it's leaking, and they come and they say, we're gonna fix it. They come, they rip up a big chunk of the part of the road, probably a quarter of just one area, and then they patch it. And that's been for 4 years. So does the resident supposed to just take that patch and then another patch over here and another patch over here? And just accept it? Or
My neighbors on my street ask me that question all the time. And they say, this is you're the mayor, you live on this street, look at the shape of it. There's a patch here, there's a patch there. It happens, I mean, between the snow plowing, I guess it's called the alligatoring, the cracks in the seams on streets, because they pave one side and they pave the other. I mean, it's.
That's wear and tear, I understand that.
Well, you gotta understand, the biggest problem that we have with roadway patches is public service. Public service comes in, everything is an emergency, they come in, they rip it up, and it takes us a long, long time to get them to come back, because the crew that digs it up doesn't do the repair. So all they do is backfill it with the same material, it sinks out, and then we have them come back, they have to dig it up, but it takes months to get them back here. As a matter of fact, I'm going through this problem with them right now. But that seems to be the biggest problem. I have brand-new streets. Go look on Grisling Court. It was just paved this past August. There must be 4 patches on the roadway, and
It happened on Lakewood too. We finally got Lakewood paved from Bowden all the way to Ridge, and within 3 weeks, there's a big giant, maybe a 5x5 square right in the middle of it.
on Bowden Road, I can tell you there's 22 patches on Bowden Road right now. Probably from Rugby to Route 23.
Well, what about if the town actually did the patches? If it's a town issue with the water department coming in, and they're coming in fixing these water pipes, and they just patch it up. We're not waiting for PSE&G to come and re-inspect it. This is our own town.
Well, it depends on the time of year. If it's the winter time, we can't.
4 years, Mr. Mayor. I'll show you one patch, 4
Well,
years
if there's,
it's been sitting there.
then if there's an issue with a patch in a road,
Mayor,
you gotta let us,
I'll
you
take a
gotta
look
let
at
us
this
know.
tomorrow morning, Mayor. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna
I
go
just
out
feel
tomorrow
that,
morning.
you know why, Mr. Mayor, we don't want to open up this road? Because we just don't want to see what's underneath there and what's happening. Because we all know there's so many natural springs going underneath that road. We all know it. Because at the end of the day, like we just heard tonight, it comes from the hill, from the top of the hill, comes down the hill, it goes underneath Lindsley. After it goes underneath Lindsley, gets dispersed into brooks. But then from them brooks, from over time, all got eroded. And what happens? It starts leaking other places, and it all goes underneath roads. So that's what cracks the roads. That's what makes water gurgle out of it. That's what breaks pipes. Just with electric alone, you shouldn't mix electric and water, which we all know. And this is one of the problems right there alone. So,
Deputy Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, if I may. So, Mr. Vazano, I've listened intently to everything that you've all had to say. I can tell you that the road inventory that the town does is extremely detailed. And I know that Mr. Tucci and the rest of the town, when they do that, they take it very seriously. I know we as council members, I can tell you, one of the biggest things that we get asked is, when is my road gonna be paved? And, we look at this inventory, and it's called a road inventory. It's really an assessment of the roads, and they do it every 2 years. And how many get paved every year?
Probably about 8 to 10 roads every year.
So, there's a regular maintenance that they do, and they take the 8 to 10 worst roads, and they try to do that every year. So, I can tell you that I've seen this road inventory. It goes line by line, patches, and all these different items, and they're ranked. So, I can tell you that I know the town works really hard to try to keep that up, but it's impossible to do every single road.
I understand.
And if there's always a certain patch or something like that you don't feel was addressed, you can always reach out to the town manager.
But it's just more, I guess, really the water issues that we're having there.
Sure.
And along with the sewer drains, that they're raised higher than the pavement. I mean, we can go all day long with roads and this and that. I mean, we can blame the county for so much, like we're doing with the water too. I mean, it's ridiculous that we live in Cedar Grove and we have, right on Pompton Avenue, our roads have been ripped up for so long. God forbid you want to come down there with a Lamborghini or Ferrari, you could forget that. I mean, it's absurd. You want to take out your sports car and come down that road? Please, do yourself a favor. You're better off selling it or keeping it in the garage or find a second home in Miami to drive it around. Sorry, but thank you for your time coming out. I really appreciate it.
Anybody else wishing to be heard?
Yes. I'm going to be short and sweet.
Robert Coda, 1 Pilgrim Court. First, I'd like to thank Robbie over here, Deputy Mayor,
gentleman sitting next to him, because these two gentlemen actually seem like they're genuinely interested in what's going on in their town, and I really appreciate it. I want to give you a little bit of a practical approach to what's going on instead of beating a dead horse. We've got a neighborhood where fortunately we get along. However, there are some people there that refuse to show up, put their names on paper. They're afraid that if their names go to paper and they go to sell their house, anybody looks it up, they're gonna have less value on the home, they're gonna have a hard time selling it. It's a big concern. More importantly, if you know a little of the history of, not Willow Ridge and Pilgrim, but if you look at the history of the next development, Dogwood, they were forced to have an association in there. Well, there was a lot of infighting in the neighborhood. There's documents that there was arrests that were made, and it all stemmed from the association having to pay money and fight this water issue. I can tell you that their water issue is severe. It's beyond what we experience, where you can't even walk in yards back there. There's people that have spent thousands and thousands of dollars to put rock in order to try to create an actual drainage, so to speak. Now, expanding a little bit on what Rich said before, he's hired an engineer. I've got a neighbor behind me that's a little pissed off at me, excuse my language, a little upset with me right now because I had to create a 30-foot trench, 35 feet trench. I had my boys dig it from the corner of my back house, which is Pilgrim and Willow Ridge, to bring it into a dry well. Why? The water buildup is so severe that my sump pump runs 24/7. It's like a lake. So in order for me to alleviate that, I had to actually create a drain. My neighbor says, that's not right, you're putting water on my property. And this is where I'm getting at with this. I feel that I'm doing something morally wrong to my neighbor back there, because in order to make my house better, he may have to suffer the next consequences. Just like Rich said, he goes through all this landscaping, and maybe he puts it on his property. Now he has bigger problems. So now, I had the other day, I've got documentation, I got the paperwork, I had Roto-Rooter come in just to see what's going on in the drain from the back of my house. They found nothing. What they did find, though, towards the front of the house, water is sitting up at the top of where the drain spout comes in, which actually leads to the street. I'm now gonna have to bring somebody in, and I don't mind paying the money to put a camera in there to find out where these blockages are coming from. I understand I have a responsibility as a homeowner. I don't expect things to be for free. If it's on my property, fine, I'll pay for it. But if it's found to go up to the whether it's the county, the township of Cedar Grove, I expect them to do something about this. So I'm willing to spend money also. I may spend money with my neighbor behind me, the neighbor over there, and the neighbor there, who, by the way, all their properties are eroding severely. We may apply to a landscape engineer to create waterways to go into the protected land, which you can run water in there. Why not if we run it to the street? But if we do that without your permission, we're in violation. If we do it with your permission, it may cost us $20,000, $30,000 to get rid of a water problem. But what are we then doing? Are we creating more water problems for the neighbors at the end of the street, for the people going into Little Falls? I can tell you that every waterway coming from one side and the development over there actually starting to basically encompass that whole neighborhood, there's 70, 80 homes down there that are affected by this. So, to me, I have a moral obligation. I look at the township here, I look at the county, and you guys have culpability in this. There's absolutely no question you do. And you have a responsibility to act on our behalf. All we would ask at this point, I don't want to bore all these people that come here for other reasons. Set up a meeting with us, we've asked this before, have a private meeting, talk to the homeowners, find out exactly what our problems are. You're going to find out that we all have common problems. Some people have no water issues. They're lucky enough, they sit by those natural wetlands you can't build on, so the water bypasses them, but it's actually eroding away. So you really need to do your due diligence on this. That's all I got to say, and I appreciate you listening to me. Sorry if I sound a little excitable, but it's just something we live with all the time. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, may I
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just add
One moment,
thing.
please.
Mr. Cota, thank you for coming up. I just want to mention the three individuals to my right here have been nothing but supportive as well. So I know that they're not they haven't said much on the topic, but I want you to know that they are genuinely interested, they genuinely care about all of our residents. So I just wanted to share that.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, James Palmer, 119 Stevens Avenue. I just wanted to comment earlier about the property on Pompton Avenue that the town may be potentially be able to get at no cost. I think that would be great, especially, all the talk about flooding and everything else in town. If that's one more place we can secure to and forever guarantee not to be developed, would be a huge benefit. But my original reason for coming up was also about erosion and about water. Same place like Cliffside Drive, if it's approved for cluster housing, all the trees that would have to be removed. If I want to cut a tree down, I have to fill out paperwork and, everything else. With the builders who clear these areas, do they have to do the same paperwork? Do they also have to replace the amount of trees they cut? And if so, where would they? You all know the amount of trees help stop erosion, they also help stop flooding.
Yeah, I believe the answer to that question is yes.
The answer to the question is yes. As part of the site plan approval, when they go before a board, they have to submit documentation, they have to do a tree inventory, and they have to replace those trees either on the site, or they can donate to the town tree fund, which then we replant them elsewhere in town.
Would it be the same amount, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay.
The only trees that are not replanted are the trees that are actually in the footprint of the building. Those are not mitigated. The rest will have to be mitigated for.
And one thing we could add too is a development of that magnitude is going to require compliance with the stormwater management regs, which actually require the improved property to have lower runoff rates
That was gonna be my next
than
question,
currently
actually.
exist. And pretty significantly for the 2-year storm. I think it goes 210 and 100-year storm, or 220 and 100-year storm. They're reduced significantly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to be heard? Yes, come on.
Good evening, Councilman. I live on Pilgrim Court. My name is Richard Eros. I spoke about a month ago when I was here. And in regards to the problems we're having over at the Dogwood Estates, Willow Ridge Estates. And I just want to say a couple things. Rich had already mentioned about our street on Pilgrim Court and Willow Ridge. The sewer crates are above the street. So how does water drain? You got a lip there that's at least a few inches. So, it gets dammed up and, water's just gonna sit there, okay? And over time, that's going to just damage the street also. It's going to soak in, create erosion right underneath the street. The street was never finalized, the surface. Maybe many of you know about the development was, that street was put in by a gentleman named Eric Charles, who ended up going to jail because he was putting inferior products and doing things that were not kosher in that development. And he ended up going to jail for about 5 years. So, there's problems to that road, and it was never finalized. Nobody came in from the town and said, okay, this is the right way to do it, we're going to fix this, we're going to do it right. Things are done by construction code. When you install something, the builder does that. I don't want to say anything, well, Mark, you said before, you were driving through and you made the comparison between driveways and the street. I'm the only person in the whole development that has driveway redone. And I did that not because I had a problem with my driveway. And you can't do a comparison about the street and people's driveways because you do construction grade. When you come in, least expensive, a couple inches of gravel, throw the asphalt down, and that's it. You put a street in there, it's not like that. The design is going to be a three-factor at least. So the Kodak moment here is if you had your camera, you came to our development a year and a half ago, you wouldn't see all the cracks. This thing it's accelerated over the past year tremendously. And I grew up in Wayne. I had my business in Little Falls for 29 years. The storm we had wasn't even in the top 10 as far as the storm of the century. No way. I've seen flooding I've seen rainfall. It doesn't rank that way. I wonder with the situation, it's almost getting to be the water coming over that mountain. About a week ago, I pulled out my development in the morning going to my office. And it wasn't raining that hard. And in fact, none of you probably would have used an umbrella that day. I come to West Lindsay Road, I'm sitting there, I gotta make the right or the left turn out of Willow Ridge Road, and I'm saying to myself, I can't believe it. The water's coming over that retaining wall that was built, whatever, 80 years ago or whatever. And our drains in there are many, many drains that probably are stuffed up. I've never seen anybody go in here and clean out those drains. You've got every X number of feet, you have a drain coming through that old retaining wall. No one's ever did any maintenance whatsoever. So, and as far as the pipeline is concerned, I mentioned this last time. I don't know, once a year they close off that pipeline and they send somebody supposedly from Boonton Reservoir down to North Bay and to make sure that there's no fractures. Now, can we request someone doing that now? Can we request having somebody from the Water Commission, from the county, whoever it is, to go through that tunnel to make sure that there are no fractures in that tunnel that might be leaking and causing an accelerated problem with this flooding that is getting worse and worse every month. I mean, we only had a small rainfall a week ago, and I'm saying to myself, excuse my expression, what the hell is going on? The water is pouring over. It's a waterfall.
You're talking about the wall that's on West Lindsay?
Right, it's a stone wall.
The upside of West Lindsay.
It's at the base of the mountain on the other side,
Yeah.
correct, right? No maintenance has ever been done there. I mean, no one's gone over there to inspect it, to make repairs. It's sagging in some spots. The wall is probably about a good 6 feet height, which, you know, if it crumbles, somebody drives over there, somebody's walking there, you have a problem. A big lawsuit. Now, another mention I want to bring up is there's an old house that's over on West Lindsay, 125 West Lindsay. And my property is close by. Rich and Renee, when they look out their back window, that's what they say. It's this big old house that's sitting there. Now, early in the evening, it was nice to hear about the Espositos, who have had their business in Cedar Grove, 30 years? Well, guess what? That house has been empty for more than 30 years. Windows broken, doors hanging off, empty. Why have we gone in there, condemned the property, take it over, take the property over, and that's it. That's the end of it. Why is that house still sitting there? Over 30 years, nobody's living there. It's not, you can't live there. It's in tremendous, poorly, the repairs would be incredible. The house is 150 years old. Why hasn't something like that been done there? And at the same time, the town would have a better snapshot about what things are going on in our particular area over there in West Lindsay. I just think there's more responsibility. We pay a lot of taxes, and we're not getting, we don't feel we're getting the full service.
Well, we appreciate your concerns. I think that you've heard us tonight say that we're in a position where we started the dialogue with the county. As Deputy Mayor Vargo said, we're going to try to continue. I know you're looking for a meeting with engineers. We're trying to put all that together. I
understand, but Mr. Mayor, over 30 years, you have a dilapidated building there, okay, impacts my house, the value, impacts their house back there, okay, my neighbors, impacts them more than myself, because they look out their back window. I'm a property next there. Even Bob Koda, who's just a couple houses away, impacts his property, the value of the property. We pay full taxes, and you know what? That's not the postcard that I want to send to anybody. That's where I live. That's the neighborhood. That's what I see. I don't know why it hasn't been condemned.
I don't know. This is the first time I'm hearing of it. So I don't know why it hasn't been. I don't know why it hasn't been.
I'll take a look at it.
Fine.
I'm not aware of it, but I'll take a look at it.
Mr. Tucci said he'll take a look at it when he goes out there tomorrow. Tomorrow you'll take a
I'm
look.
going to be out there tomorrow.
Take a
Yeah,
look at
because
it
it's not
tomorrow
buildable.
when he
You
looks at
can't
the
build there.
drains.
First of all, you can't build on that lot. People have bought that lot time in and time again, and they sell it. They sell it at a big loss because they find out that they can't build there. You got trees there that are wrapped around those pipelines. If you try to take those, cut those trees and you pull out those stumps with all those roots, big problems. Big problems. I'm hungry. I gotta go home and eat.
Thank you.
Mayor,
And-
that's one question, or, Ms. Hartwick, while you're here, what would be the next step to have the county engineer come out to a meeting with our engineer, if that was gonna happen? How would we go about coordinating that with the county engineer?
Actually, I think that when we conferenced this morning, we did say that that would be the next step, would be to put everybody, us together in the room, the township and the county, and take a look at what the township had uncovered with their due diligence compared to what the county has
Okay.
with regards to their.
So we can let the residents know when that meeting's gonna take place, and then we can, you guys can be there as well, or how we're gonna coordinate that. All right? Thanks, Ms. Hartwick. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other residents wishing to be heard? Seeing none? Do you have any issues for
No.
executive?
No.
Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, Mayor.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Good evening.